this year. Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman and former CIA officer Abigail Spanberger. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us this morning. 12 Republicans voted against the gold medal for the Capitol Police officers because they didn't want to use the word insurrection. Many Republicans bend themselves into pretzels to not say that Joe Biden won the election fairly. We see this report from intelligence communities warning that more could be coming because of these false narratives. What are your concerns this morning?
Well, I want to first start by saying thank you very much for giving a platform to Officer Dunn to tell his story, his extraordinary story, and frankly, what it was, his testimony that is his and that of so many Capitol Police officers. I was in the Capitol on the day of the January 6th insurrection, and the incredible work of the Capitol Police officers is what saved democracy that day, and it's what kept so many of us safe. And unfortunately, 3 police officers have lost their lives, and so many more have faced lifelong consequences because of their fight to save our democracy. And the fact that we have colleagues who are unwilling to call an attack on the United States Capitol by fellow Americans an insurrection, an attack on the United States Capitol as we were there to do our constitutional duty of recognizing the results of the 2020 election. They were there to disrupt that effort. They were there to stop it. They were there to essentially assert their will over the will of the American people. And that is what an insurrection is. And when we look at the threat of domestic violence that we have heard from FBI Director Wray, from Secretary Mayorkas, when we look at this new DNI report recognizing the unclassified DNI report recognizing the efforts of the Russian government to sow disinformation and divisions within our community, the most important thing is that lawmakers and anyone with an elevated voice tell the truth. And the truth is there was not widespread fraud. The truth is Joe Biden won the election. And many people may be disappointed by that fact, but it is the truth. And the fact that I have colleagues who continue to be unwilling to tell the truth to their constituents, it's dangerous to democracy, and it's a grave disappointment.
You brought up the other intelligence report about Russian interference in the U.S. election. You're on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and there's a full-scale diplomatic battle now between the U.S. and Russia. Russia is lashing out at the Biden administration for these comments that President Biden made about this report that Russia once again attacked the U.S. election. Listen.
You know Vladimir Putin. You think he's a killer?
Mm-hmm. I do.
So what price must he pay?
The price he's going to pay, well, you'll see shortly.
Yes, he thinks that Vladimir Putin is a killer. Russia has recalled its ambassadors, calling on President Biden to apologize for those statements. Where does this go from here? Is this worth it? Was it important enough to send that message to Russia and have it be worth it they have recalled their ambassador?
The starting point of the relationship right now, where we are in March of 2021, is that we are beginning a new administration, having just finished 4 years of a president of the United States who stood by while Vladimir Putin aggressed against our elections, sowed division through propaganda means within our community. And when faced with the undisputed intelligence and information provided by the intelligence community, the former president chose the side of defending Russia instead of believing the intelligence community. So it's important in context to recognize that this where we are right now is a result of 4 years of not pushing back up against an authoritarian government, pushing back up against a former KGB officer who we know has meddled in our elections, who we know engaged to try and influence the 2020 elections as well. And so it's a real challenge for the Biden administration because there hasn't been consistent U.S. policy pushing back up against the aggression of Russia, which is nothing new. But what is new is that we had departed. The former administration didn't denounce it, didn't fight back against it. And so that's why President Biden's comments are so extraordinary. At least they seem so at this moment, because it's coming after 4 years of really not standing up for the American democracy in the face of an authoritarian regime trying to undo it.
And in fact, and all these things are connected, right? There's actually a lot of connection between all these different threads that we're talking about this morning. The former administration didn't just not push back. In some cases, they tried to distract, it seems, and maybe even offer dishonest testimony or statements. In this new report that came out, it talks about China and China's efforts to influence the election or lack thereof. The report says China did not interfere. China considered but did not deploy interference efforts. Okay, that just from a report in the intelligence community. Nevertheless, the former director of national intelligence, John Ratcliffe, said this.
China's using a massive and sophisticated influence campaign that dwarfs anything that any other country is doing.
And the report says China did not interfere, considered, but did not deploy interference efforts. Yeah. Both things can't be true.
I would agree with you. Both things can't be true. So then the question has to become, why were we hearing such a departure? The men and women, the professionals of the intelligence community, career public servants who focus day in and day out on collecting information, analyzing said information, and putting it forward in reports that are meant to inform policymakers, that are meant to inform administration officials. Those folks didn't change. And so I'm grateful at this point that we have this unclassified version of the DNI report out in the public sphere so that we can understand what's been happening and we can speak publicly about what's been happening and who, in fact, has tried to impact our elections and sow division in our society.
Let me play more sound from the former Attorney General of the United States, William Barr, with our Wolf Blitzer. Listen to this.
The intelligence community has pointed to Russia, China, and Iran. Which is the most assertive, the most aggressive in this area?
I believe it's China.
Which one?
China.
China more than Russia right now?
Yes.
Again, it's just stunning when you read the report that just came out that says that I'm not dismissing the threat that China poses to the United States, but the report says China did not interfere, and you have Ratcliffe and the Attorney General saying they did. It just seems, were they lying?
Well, and what's telling in that interview is that he said, I believe it's China. It's not about his belief system. It's about the undisputed intelligence. It's not about what he chooses to believe. But this is consistent with the former administrations constantly trying to divert attention towards China, trying to create some sort of punching bag conversation. And let me be clear, we face significant challenges as it relates to the Chinese Communist Party. But this sort of rhetoric, constantly trying to create a distraction away from Russia, away from Iran, away from North Korea, and towards China is not only detrimental to our national security, but we see it here domestically. We see a president who constantly was talking about the coronavirus in terms of, the links back to China. And now here domestically, to bring it full circle, we see the increases of anti-Asian hate that I'm hearing about from my constituents back home in Virginia. And certainly we see the tragic murder of 8 people, 6 of them Asian women, in Atlanta. All of these things have some connection within our society, and it all comes back to telling the truth. And so, my heart goes out to the people of Georgia. My heart goes out to any Asian American person who feels fear at this moment. But we have to demonstrate that what matters is telling the truth. And when it comes to who's attempting to meddle in our elections, it's the Russians.
Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, great discussion. Thank you for coming on this morning. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, John.